So this is Wild Child. So we were thinking now that you saw Wild Child a little bit, so it's time for a tour to talk about who is Wild Child, beautiful sailboat. See, how are you?
Good morning, guys. We realized that although we're familiar with our boat and we know where everything is and how it goes because we built it, we realized we've really never given you a tour of the boat. So this is just a quick sort of unedited fast 10-minute video to give you a walkthrough. I think Michel showed you from the outside.
So let's go first to show you the V-Bird. A little bit of sun, but that's the V-Bird. Comfortable new mattress, so sleeping is so important. So and then here the head, and we install the shower. There you go, so we can shower. That's neat. And here you have the table, all the food behind there, kitchen basically, and the nav desk, one of the most important part of the sailboat.
One of the benefits that we have is that I'm an engineer and electrical engineering is my specialty. So when we got this girl 3 years ago, we began ripping her apart. We removed every single wire out of this boat and redid it from scratch. It had a hot water heater tank that was engine heated. We removed that. It was new and in good condition, but we removed it because when you want to have a boat that's going to go sailing around the world, you have to think about being at the anchor all the time, on the hook, and never at a marina, never have shore power. So one of the things that we did is we ripped every single wire out of the boat. We ripped out all of the plumbing. Essentially the girl was well taken care of inside, but she was ignored inside. So there were no changes that I know of since 1981. New Newfoundland windows were put in, we know that. But a lot of the rest was still very original because it wasn't used. We added 101 gallons of fresh water plus a 15-gallon rainwater shower tank, and we redid the entire panel. We ripped out all the old stuff, made a new back panel board, ripped out all the old electrical, and redid everything from scratch. The way we divided the boat, we kind of isolated our electrical systems. The boat has 9 batteries. They're deep cycle batteries, but they're regular size and they're easy to replace anywhere in the world. The biggest consumer of electricity on a boat is your refrigeration bank. We have a fridge and a freezer that we built. The fridge is an old ice box that we had to insulate from the inside, and the freezer we built is about 1.5 cubic feet, very, very well insulated, very energy efficient, and they can both run on DC. So in the refrigeration bank, there are 2 batteries for dedicated to refrigeration. There's a solar charge controller here with 3 solar panels, and then the wind generator power goes here into the refrigeration bank. The refrigeration bank is isolated from the electronics bank, which is isolated from the house bank. The engine also runs on its own battery, and the windlass runs on its own electrical system. We went a little overboard, but what do you expect from an electrical engineer? One of the benefits that we have on our boat is we can watch how much energy we're making. So right now I can see that the solar panels are bringing in 3.1 amps of energy. The refrigeration bank is using 4.5 amps of energy. We have 13 volts available in the bank, and the wind generator is making 0.17 amps of energy. We can always monitor our battery levels, how much energy we're making and how much energy we're using. The electronics bank is everything on this panel, which is dedicated to everything the boat needs to run. The last thing that you would want would be to lose your autopilot, or lose your chart plotter, or lose your lights, or lose your ability to navigate because you watched too much TV that day. So our electronics bank is everything necessary to run the boat, and it has its own 2 batteries and 3 solar panels, and it is isolated from everything else. Then in the house bank, there's actually 3 batteries, 2 deep cycle and 1 deep cycle starting battery. And This is for the inverter. We have a 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter, giving the house AC electrical power whenever we need it. These are the bilge pumps. This is another feature that we kind of spruced up. We have our main bilge pump, and these, even when you kill the panel, you don't want to kill your bilge pumps. You always want them on. So these bilge pumps are always on, even when you kill the panels. This is the main bilge pump in the bottom of the bilge, but we actually have a backup bilge pump in the bilge, but the float switch for it is a little bit higher, about 6 inches higher than the float switch for the main. If the backup ever goes off, the alarm will sound to tell us that either A, the main bilge pump has failed, or B, the main bilge pump cannot keep up with the flow of water all of a sudden, which would tell us if there's a crack. So when the backup bilge goes off, it tells us. We had an issue when we first got the boat. It had a single bilge and a single float. Some debris got into the impeller, blocked it up. It wasn't able to pump. We had no idea. We came in one day and looked in the shower and said, oh my goodness, the boat's sinking. Why is the shower pan full of water? That was terrifying. If you live on a boat, one of the things you're most afraid of is sinking your boat. Like, the water level, any hole in your boat, as long as your boat floats, you're safe. If your boat isn't floating, you're not safe anymore. If you have only one bilge pump and that one bilge pump happens to fail you, how are you going to know about it? Probably you don't have it rigged for an alarm. After that scare, we decided to do backup. We also replaced the manual bilge pump, and we have an AC electric sump pump with a hose that we could use if we really needed to. One of the other things on a boat that you care about is your water. So we have 101 gallons of fresh water that we carry pretty much at all times, plus another 20 gallons on deck. Our water system, though, was designed, we built it and we designed it differently. How do you turn the taps on? This doesn't seem to do anything. And you can see that we have 2 of them here. What we did is we installed foot pedal switches down below. So these are the kind of switches that you would use for a windlass, and these are electric switches that activate the water pump to turn on the water. The reason we did this, most boats use a single water pump and a pressurized water system. A story that you hear all the time, though, is that we were sailing, a hose somewhere is cracked or a fitting gave way, we didn't know it, the pressure pump emptied our entire freshwater tank into our boat, into the bilge. We lost all our water. Also, a pressurized water system is always using electrical energy on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off to maintain that pressure. So we viewed that as a waste of energy and a risk that if at some point you have a pressurized system and it ever gives, you could lose all your tanks and you could flood your boat. Our system, every single faucet has its own singular dedicated water pump. That water pump has no electrical energy until you give it energy with the on-off switch, with the foot pedal. This gives us some benefits. One, they're low pressure water pumps. So you're pouring less water than a high pressure system. So you're using less water. Your hands are free while you wash and your foot is controlling the water pressure, which enables you to not use the water, turn the water off every second that you don't need it. You consume way less water. The other thing is every water pump, every faucet is using the exact same pump. So we only have to carry one spare pump to back them all up. Another problem is on boats that have a pressure water system, a pressurized water system, they have one pump. If that one pump fails, they lose water on the entire boat and have no way to get access to the water in the tanks. On our boat, if any individual pump were ever to fail, we wouldn't care because it wouldn't prevent us from getting water from the other pumps. Also, we only need to carry one spare and makes it easy to switch out.
We have 4 jerry can of diesel, 4 jerry can of water, and 2 jerry can of gas for the generator and the water maker if we need it.
Boats, we have a pilot berth, and like many boats, we've stuffed it full of junk. We use a curtain to hide it. This used to be Dakota's bedroom, but since Dakota's not here anymore, it is just filled to brimming with all that extra junk that you need. A sailboat doesn't have a lot of storage space, and an unused pilot berth kind of makes a perfect place to store things.
Thing about the engine, so we're a sailboat, so we don't like using the engine, of course. So the engine is a Volkswagen Rabbit. It was done by Pathfinder Marine, who they bought maybe 1,000 of those engines. So it's a 4-cylinder, 40 horsepower, and great engine. It's working well. We had some difficulty. You will see it on a different video. And one thing online that you see about those engines, they are reliable, but now to find parts, it's very difficult. And there's a few complaints of people saying that it's hard to find parts. So we had some spare, and one part that we had difficulty that we don't have a spare, it's the alternator. And that's one that we don't have, and the water pump neither, but everything is so far is good. But when you need it, you need a second part, a spare, and we don't have those parts. You go around the world or long passage, you want to have spare part, and we have a general store. It's under the pilot berth, so it's all under here. I'll show you. So look at that, it's full of parts for the engine, for the sail, so everything there for water maker, electricity, pump, everything is there. These are the spare. So, and you try to get the one that you think you will need, but of course in life something happen. Oh, we don't have that part, but we try to get everything that we need for the next few years. This is the interior of Wild Child, and let's go on the deck now to show you what we have on the deck.
Probably already seen shots of the cockpit, so we're just going to do a very brief and quick tour of this. So we modified the anchor locker, added a windlass. Underneath the tarp is 2 spinnakers, our asymmetrical and symmetrical. I'm an expert level kayaker, so I couldn't live with no kayaks. There's my scuba tank, and underneath all of these is Michel's scuba diving tank. We're scuba divers, so we're hoping that we'll get to beautiful waters to scuba dive. We made sun covers for all the jerry cans because we know the UV is very bad for the plastic. You can see on each side there's 2 water, 2 diesel, 1 gas. We decided to put the netting in because it helps keep anybody or anything from rolling underneath the lifelines in the event of severe waves. We have jack lines on the boat, and originally they were white strap, like a banded strap. But they really didn't fare well and didn't last long enough, so we had to replace it with some spare rope. This crazy looking thing here is a solar water heater for the shower. I realize that we don't have enough energy to waste keeping a hot water tank on the boat, but I'm a girl, and I admit there's no way I want to take a freezing cold shower, and Michel screams like a little girl when he takes a cold shower. So remarkably, this little sun box is essentially just a bowl of water. It's insulated from the deck. It's got 30 feet of black copper pipe coiled up in it, and it sits in water with a plexiglass cover. During the day, as the sun heats up the water in the box, that heats up the piping, and the water that passes from the tank through to the shower has to pass through 30 feet of this pipe in hot water. It actually works pretty well. For sailing hardware, our girl is a racer, so she has a baby stay, running back stays. The shrouds are inside the walkway, so we can pull the jenny really tight for pointing. The traveler for the main sheet is over the companionway hatch, and we can bring it to windward if we want to go really tight on things. We have boom vang and all kinds of rigging on it. There's 5 winches on the deck itself, and one of the things that we added was a storm sail. So technically Wild Child is not a cutter rig. She's sort of cutter rigged in that we had a storm sail made out of our own jenny. It's just a tiny little thing. It's only 18 feet tall and I think 6 feet at the foot. And we had to reinforce the deck to be able to bear the weight of this. So that track underneath the fiberglass of that track is, we added Kevlar and fiberglass to reinforce it, so that can take a tremendous amount of force. We had to cut it to add the windlass, and we had to build a platform for the life raft sort of over the track. Wild Child has a happy pack, a brand new mainsail, a brand new jenny, all made by Sport Tech Sails. We had, originally when we bought her, she was bare in the cockpit and had only a dodger. We added shade because I think sailing in brutal sun and open conditions would just be terrible. Another thing that we added was the arch. We added that just before we left. It's essentially the letter H. We had some friends that can do stainless steel work from Port Colborne Marina help us with this. The arch gives us the ability to mount the radar above the boom and the wind generator clear of the running backstays. The running backstays, although not necessary, do give an extra element of support and enable us to shape the mast. We're not racers, so we're not so concerned about shaping the mast. Also, the letter H, the arch that we had built, gave us the real estate to mount some extra solar panels facing upwards. And then we did reinforcing for our dinghy davits, which are Atkins and Hoyle, Atkins and Hoyle, they suck. They're terrible, unbelievably expensive. Atkins and Hoyle will sell you this for over $6,000, and they're just not good. But we got them from a friend for a deal. So what we did is the letter H, the arch, has a support beam that runs forward and down, and then from the arch we added a stainless steel aircraft cable from the arch to go support the davits, because they just don't hold that kind of weight the way they're designed. They're strong now though. I mean, with the extra support that we gave it, they're very strong. Remarkable opportunity that we have today is the boat beside us at the marina is an original unmodified CNC40, made one of the first years they brought the CNC40 back to CNC Yachts in Canada. The hull is exactly the same. All the basic rigging is the same. Our girl has more deck hardware than this one does. We also have running backstays that this girl doesn't have. But the hull, the shape, the mold, and the design are all exactly the same. You can see his whisker pole and spinnaker pole on deck there. And his cockpit is designed a little differently than ours.